Every day, you wake up as your own boss, making your own way. Every day, you continue your journey to change the world, your team, and yourself. Every day, you encourage, congratulate, celebrate, and reach toward your goal of being the best and providing the best. The Build Your Best Business Show is for you. The real stories of building a business from other owners and founders along the journey. Find the support and advice you need to successfully start, grow, manage, and exit your business. What are you going to do today to build your best business?
Welcome to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Build Your Best Business focuses on the entrepreneurial journey. What does it take to successfully start, manage, grow, and eventually exit a business? And in that growth stage, Miss Whitney Mendoza with Briller Media is where you find many companies truly struggling.
Oh, yes.
And so your company handles social media, video, those kind of things for companies.
Correct. Podcasting, do a little bit of website help.
Yeah. And so my company, Laddering Works, goes in and looks at building an overall marketing strategy, or we might help a company that needs operational structure.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not growing, you may need marketing. If you're growing too fast, you may need some operations. And I was talking with you, which is why we decided to have this conversation today about some of the things that we run into when we get into a company that is ready to grow. So they'll come to you and say, hey, we're ready to do social media, or we need to get more followers, or whatever that approach is. What are some of the mistakes that you see, that some of the things they haven't done before they can do social media? Because I know you want to sell everybody social media, right?
Yes, but there are some other things that you need in order for social media to be as effective as it can be.
So you mean social media doesn't just work if I go out and like tweet?
Correct. If your social media looks like 2017 and your website looks like 1985, there's a disconnect there.
So
that's probably the most blaring thing that you first see when you start to work, which is, what we were talking about earlier. Okay, you're on social media, and then we've talked about before where most people find you on social media first.
They do. So if you're a B2B company, 70% of their decision to work with you is experienced on other places.
Right.
So they're seeing you on social media, they're reading your content. So you've spent, whether or not you know it, before they come to your website, before they visit your website, 70% of your investment in getting that person to finally show up at the website is over social media, content, those types of things. But then when I click a button, you finally convince me, you say if they have a bad website, they have a problem.
Yes. People will click off.
And you see those like in the stats and stuff?
Yes. So there's a particular company that we were talking about. They're going through a little bit of a website revamp. And they had been running several Facebook ads. And so on the backside of Facebook Analytics, it shows you how many people are clicking over to the website. The particular business owner said, well, I'm not getting any emails. I'm not getting any signups. That's because everybody was clicking off their website, because they are a beautiful version of what I just described. Their social media looks great. LinkedIn looks great, and you go to their website and it looks like it stepped out of 1985. You can't find anything. It's difficult to navigate, too much text. And that's what people were doing. And the numbers don't lie, as they say.
Yeah. And what we run into with my company, when we go into a company that wants to look at a new marketing strategy, we start to analyze, well, what are you doing? And often they're doing a lot of tactics. So they'll tell me, oh, we're running LinkedIn ads. And they think that's a marketing strategy. By the way, it's not.
What is a marketing strategy?
That's Isaac, by the way, the disembodied voice,
yes. Real.
Mr. Producer. So a marketing strategy is the combination of all of the tactics and the things that you need to do to drive your company towards a goal.
Okay.
So if you want them to sign up for a newsletter, or you want to get them to, get an assessment, whatever it is that your company does, it's not about doing one thing. It's about the combination of all of those things that bring somebody to the point to make that decision. And very much in this world, and I think it's there's some people who are really only good at one thing. So they'll
Mhm.
make the suggestion because that's what they sell. Like if I'm good at SEO, I may try to sell you SEO. If I'm
Mhm.
good at social media, I'll sell you social media. You need to do a little bit of all of those things. It's not going to be just one that's going to be the magic bullet that's going to start converting leads.
Right. You can't do a Facebook ad and not be actively posting on your own Facebook page. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you can't pay for it. It's not
Mm-mm.
like you've got to, all of that needs to be in concert. And the free stuff is what then makes the things you're paying for effective.
Correct.
So the other thing that I run into, and I'm not sure what you see, but
Okay.
when the other problem I find with the way that people are using social or sharing content is instead of sharing to an exact point. So for
Mhm.
example, let's say I've been doing things across social media. Now I want to bring you to a location on my site. Instead of bringing you to a page that's related to what I'm talking about on social
Mhm.
media,
Mhm.
I just drop you on my homepage.
Yeah, don't do that.
I know, but you see that, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's true. You
yeah,
do.
where people are like, oh, I'm
Right.
just going to drop you to my homepage. So I've been very directive. I've given you a reason why you're going
Right.
to come visit. And now all of a sudden you got to go search for whatever it is that
Yeah.
that I was sharing.
And a lot of that goes back to having, an older website. You want to be able to take your customer direct where they need to be. They shouldn't have to do any more work. It should be easy to get in contact with you to find out more information about the product. Because that's another point you often talk about is by the time someone gets on your website, they've already made the decision to buy from you.
Yeah.
So once they have and they're saying, take my money, then put them where they need to be. Put them on the, click to buy.
Yeah. And this analogy that we use is, if you see an advertisement, let's say for a retail store, and we all know that. Well, when you get to the retail store, you still have to go through the front door. You have to walk down the aisle. You have to find the product. You have to go to the front. That is not how people expect to purchase things or find information online. They come in through side doors.
Mhm.
So they walk in, let's say the product you want is on aisle 8. I don't want to come through the front door. I want you to put me on aisle 8 in
Right.
front of that product.
Right.
And if you're bringing people and thinking, oh, if I can just drive them to my website, I'm going to have a sign up there or whatever, you're not doing it right.
Well, think of it like Amazon. When you go to Amazon, you're looking for something specific.
And really, you shouldn't spend a lot of time just trying to. Have you ever
Yeah,
done that?
don't.
Like you get lost in the woods
Yep.
if you don't go directly to the
That's
product you're
true.
looking for on Amazon.
Well, what gets me is the whole suggested
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
comes
it's bad.
up. Yeah, don't go look at
If you're a
those.
spender, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, because then you'll be looking on.
People who buy
But-
this also buy these other 5 things.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I must have them too.
Yeah. But what the woodpecker product issue that you were having,
Yeah.
and you were trying to get rid of the woodpeckers,
Yes.
couldn't find anything in the store. You went to Amazon specifically to look for that.
And I found lots of different products.
Yes. So that's what you do. You wanted that specific thing. You didn't want to look at everything else.
And I wasn't going to go to a bunch of websites. In fact, I don't even think I Google searched for that. I think I was looking for other, ways that people were talking about it in forums and other groups about, so we want to have some kind of social proof. And if you don't have that built, so I'll tell you, my company coming in and looking at your company to help determine what you should do from a marketing perspective, the very last thing I want to do is to tell you to redesign your website or to redesign your brand, because it is one of the most painful things that anybody experiences. It is not an easy task. There's a lot of opinions. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It's hard to get it right. So if that suggestion is given to you by an outsider when they're looking at your brand, you should take it, because they don't do it lightly. It's not, it's
not a simple, easy, quick fix.
no, not at all.
Well,
They're
and that helps everything
painful.
else, doesn't it?
yeah, you have to have a good base.
Right.
We're talking about, have you ever seen an ad for a restaurant, or we were even talking about, staying somewhere, right? So you see the picture, you see the ad, and then you show up and you walk in and you're like, this is nothing at all
Like what I saw.
what I expected the ad to be, or what I thought the store was going to be, or if, you're staying somewhere, regrettably, you've already potentially paid for that place and you're like, oh, great. This is the next 3 days of my life. Right. This reminds me, I was, we were, lots of things were going on at work, and we were going to go out to Charleston and spend the weekend. And I didn't want to lift a finger Like I wanted to go out there.
Yeah,
I had
and
even
just relax.
and relax.
Yeah.
I had dollar bills that I was going to just tip everybody for everything. Like, pick up my bag, pick me up, like whatever, right? And so we had looked these places up and we had found what we thought was a full service hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Full service hotel. So I'm like going full service hotel, wad of bills.
Yes.
You know, I'm going to pull up to the front and the guy's going to take my bags and put them upstairs. I'm going to drink a drink on next to the pool. I'm doing nothing, right? We got there, and because of the way that we had gone through the search and what we had found, we had rented a condo instead. And when you rent a condo, there's no guy picking your bags up and putting them in the place. And you then got to go to the grocery store because you got to buy coffee and you got to get water and so disappointed. And not only was the place, it was up 2 flights of stairs. So it was not even an elevator.
Oh no.
So you get that disappointment of,
Right.
you know, and you see those on social media, like the content that's going to be awesome. This company's great. They are sharing great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I end up on what should be the crown jewel of everything you
Right.
have as a digital property. And I'm terribly disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask a question just for people who don't know this answer. What is the main foundation of marketing? So you talked about a website. Is that the main foundation that everyone should start off with?
Well, I mean, everybody should have a website. And part of the problem is that many of them are still sort of circa 1995. So they need to be more modern. They need to be less content. So they used to be, you put everything on your website because that's where I spend all my time investigating you and understanding you. They really should give you a taste of what the company does and drive you to a conversation, drive you to a bigger asset. You do have to have the website. It'd be like trying to sell a product and not having a store.
Right.
You know, like you would never do that, or having a restaurant and not having a way to cook it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
but marketing is not one thing. It's a combination of not only the website, but having landing pages. So, you know, landing pages that all they do is collect for a specific social media campaign, for a specific thing. Earned media, getting placed into a newspaper, having a byline written about you. That's one of the best things you can do. And very, very, very few companies or individuals are removed from themselves enough to understand what's interesting about themselves. You have to bring an outsider in to say, that's the story. Like that's the thing that you should really be telling others about.
All right.
So it's mostly like an experience, right? Sort of, they have to go through that experience from the website to your social media, like you were saying, coming from those doors. It has to feel the same.
It has to be consistent,
Right.
and it has to feel the same, right? And if you've decided because we've done our website or whatever, you got to do it again. And if you haven't touched your brand in years, you're going to have to touch your brand. Like even a refresh of it, you know, just a minor twist gives it so much light. And you see that big companies do it all the time. Go look at the progression of some of the biggest brands and you will see that they tweak those brands. So yeah, so making sure that the assets live up to the promise of the social media.
And that refresh, it says so much more than we just dropped $1,000 on a new logo.
Yeah.
To me, it says you're staying ahead of the game. You're staying up with the current trends. And that's what your website says. But one thing that I like that you always say when you're talking about the website is if you don't have these other pieces, so going back to how the website can't be your only component, your website's really a blank billboard in the middle of a desert if you don't have all this other stuff leading to your website.
Yeah. And that's why, you know, tactics like SEO, which used to be very important, you should still do SEO, but it's not as important as adding all this other, it's like breadcrumbs to get people into the site.
Same thing with pay-per-click. Oh, don't even get me started.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about that when we get back.
Okay, cool.
So we're talking about some of the mistakes that people make from a marketing perspective. So if you are working on your marketing strategy, thinking about what you're going to do next year, you know, what are the things that you need to put in place? Where should you be spending those dollars? And how are you maybe not spending those dollars effectively if you're just thinking about it from a tactic perspective? I'm Eric Holtzclaw, CEO and founder of Laddering Works and host of Build Your Best Business. Talking today with Whitney Mendoza with Briller Media. They make you look brilliant through video, social media, and other avenues, sort of cutting edge to make sure that you're shining. So we'll be back in just a second. You're listening to Build Your Best Business.
Congratulations, you're your own boss. Now comes the hard part. It's not just about starting a business, it's about successfully managing and growing that business to an eventual exit. And along that entrepreneurial journey, you're going to run into questions and problems that you need quick answers to. Things like, do you need a business plan? How do you read a balance sheet? How do you talk to an investor? When do you bring on a founder? Or what if you're having problems with your partner? These are the types of things that you run into as you're trying to grow that business to the next level, and they may not be the things you want to share in public with other people. They're the problems and issues that arise that, as I have experienced along my own entrepreneurial journey, that I needed to have someone I could trust to reach out to and have a conversation and get a different perspective. And it was often those short conversations that would be the thing that moved me from where I was to where I needed to be. It's for that reason I created the On-Demand CXO product offering. On-Demand CXO is something that you can use to have a conversation with a trusted advisor about what's going on in your business. We do a 1-hour phone call to talk about your business, talk about your objectives, and understand what it's going to take to move you from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. From there, you have ongoing access to a Slack channel to ask me questions in private about what's going on in your business, so that I can provide some advice or connections to my network to individuals who can help you solve against that problem. You will also have access to my Facebook page, which is full of other entrepreneurs who are along the same journey, to have more broad conversations, things that you trust and would talk about in a networking event. But when you need to go and have that conversation with a trusted advisor, you will have the ability to have a conversation with me in a place that's safe, completely anonymous, and unbiased. I want to see you succeed and build your very best business.
And we're back. You're listening to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. I'm joined today by Whitney Mendoza of Briller Media. And we're talking about what you should be thinking about from a marketing perspective. Some of the mistakes we see because we go into projects together. So I go in with my company, Laddering Works, and build a marketing strategy for a company. Like, what are the tactics? What do those look like? And then Whitney's team comes in and they help deliver some of those tactics. So it's a good relationship between the two of us. Thinking about those tactics and what are some of, so let's say I hire you for social media. So I'm like, I'm bad at it. I don't know how to do it. I just want you to help me with social media. What are you going to do first? Like, how are you going to get started to get me going in social media?
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to take you back to the website.
Really?
Because that's where I'm going to go look to see what you have. Because if you
What do you mean by what I have?
So if you do blogs.
Oh, so if I don't have a blog on my website, that might be a problem?
Yes.
But what if I'm B2B?
Still need to have a blog.
B2C?
Still need to have a blog.
Yeah. Everybody need to have a blog?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. We can go into the specifics of what, right? Because you would write about different things, of course, if you're B2B or B2C. And the frequency. Or if
it's a personal brand or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And the frequency would be different on how often you would post, but you need to have something.
So if I just come to you and I have a website that tells you what I do, then that's not going to be very helpful from a social.
Not really, no. Because I can only say what you do in so many ways, so many times.
Right.
People want to know something else.
Yeah, they want to know why you do it.
And who you are.
They really don't care what you do.
And they don't want to read everything.
I mean, when you go to a cocktail party and you walk up to somebody and your first question is, what do you do? Aren't you immediately dreading the answer? I mean, I'm immediately dreading the answer because you go as quickly as you can past that of like, how many kids do you have? Or where do you live? I didn't even understand the answer.
Yeah.
So,
where did you go this summer?
But you need to have some content going. Otherwise, we have to find that way to create it and start with content calendar that converts. We've talked about that a couple of times. But you need to have something going on. Videos, if you write articles for online like Geek Magazine or anything you've been featured in, interviews, blogging, newsletter, something. Got to have something to work with.
Well, the nice thing, back in the day when the internet was first started, it didn't really support images even well. So you had to write and then you couldn't do video. Well, now you can really choose whatever you're most comfortable with. So if you're comfortable writing, if you're comfortable in video, do something that you like Some people are better like me at prepared things. Some people are much better at just whipping out the camera and, talking. So you got to do something and
You
create the
got to
content.
do something.
And so the other mistake I see made that I think is a mistake, and you can tell me, is that I hear a lot of people creating content, but then they put it on other platforms and they never bring it back to their website.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a question. So what if tomorrow LinkedIn goes out of business?
Exactly. All your stuff's going to be gone.
It's gone.
Everything you've published,
I may or may
uploaded.
not have some content that was previously with someone else that 100 and something interviews gone.
Dang. You got to put it in different places. It's
No
just
name.
like no name dropping. You know who you are.
No warning.
It's just like your phone, all those contacts, right? Like majority of people, hopefully, if you haven't, you should probably go do this. You back it up either on your phone, in Gmail, or whatever you have. It's just, you need to have a place to store all of this nice content that you've created.
Yeah. And the control, you have more control over that content. You can make changes to it. You can cross-reference it, and you should be doing that. So if you're writing something, you need to keep bringing it up. And one of the things that you taught me, because I've written all these articles, I've got like 160, I guess, or something like that on Inc. And I was really bad about, like, I'd write it and then I would share it once
and be done.
Yeah, I wrote it. Good luck.
Go read it.
Go read it. And so, bringing those back, like bringing them back, because they may not be important to somebody when I wrote them, but today it might be something that would be interesting. So, rule of thumb I've heard is 20% creation, 80% promotion.
I've heard that rule too.
20% creation, 80% promotion. So
really less is more.
Yeah.
On social media. I think that's a misconception.
But unpack that when you mean less is more.
So when people sit down.
You mean Twitter's better than Facebook?
Well, that is true. That's my personal opinion too. I think
140 characters for the win.
I like Twitter better than I do Facebook. You sit down and you look at social media and you're like, oh my God, I have to post 3 times a day and every one of them has to be a new blog or something, right? Like everyone feels like they have to scramble for content. You don't have to do that. Really, less is more. There have been new studies recently that have come. Of course, I get them in my email all the time reading about what's trending.
Another reason why you should work with somebody to do this, because you cannot keep up.
No. So it changes all the time. But recently, several studies have come out that less is more because people are being bombarded now by information. So it's better that you post, let's say for Facebook for this case, because Twitter, different rules. Facebook, one really good, meaty, helpful post is better than 3 random pictures.
Got it.
So it's quality, not quantity.
Yeah. Relevancy. Yeah. Consistency. Consistency.
Yes. That's key. You want to post something every day.
Yeah.
But you need to go and find when your people are online because that varies too.
Well, and that's an important that talking about posting. So the other studies that have come out talking about the number of times. So I need to hear your name, see your brand 20 times before I'm even aware that you exist in my ecosystem. And I'm sort of at a point that I want to investigate. So when I'm talking with companies, I'll encourage them to do something like a newsletter because they may not, people may not be on social media. They may not be visiting your site. They're really probably not visiting your site really. But that newsletter, even if they don't read it, because regrettably people don't read it, and no matter how much time you spent, your name showed up in their email box kind of once a week, whatever, once a month, whatever you decide to do. And they're like, oh yeah, like you're still around and I remember you. And I'm amazed. I put one out every week and I have people who respond to almost every one of different people who'll come back and say, oh, that was great. Thanks for doing that or whatever. And it's a way to stay in touch with them without selling them anything or whatever. It's just a way for my name to stay in their inbox. And they're like, oh, there's this guy and maybe I'll need him to do something for me.
And that's why you need all those different elements. I'm finding now I'm even like that with networking events, because you start going to networking events and you're seeing the same people and it's like, hey, I remember you. We saw each other. And then it may be someone that you didn't speak to before, but now you've seen them a couple of times and they're, what do you do? Or, hey, I've heard your name a couple of times and now I'm finally meeting you. So that's why you need those different marketing pieces.
Well, and there's a psychology behind that too. If I've only met you once and you're at a networking event and potentially you're there because you're trying to generate business, I am not going to give you a lead.
Well, yeah, I don't
Because
know anything
I don't know
about
you.
Yeah, it's
But
true.
if you and I show up at the same networking event for 4 times and I start to
Mhm.
know a little bit about you and you seem to be consistent in that, then all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, you know, I know you did this and I've got this kind of person, you know, da, da, da.
Mhm.
And those referrals, if you can get those referrals, they're the best kind of leads.
Right.
But it's not about showing up once.
Right. And it's likely that you have someone there in common.
Right.
If you keep showing up, you know, a lot of our leads come from, hey, I know you work with so-and-so, or I've heard you mention them, or this looks new. What are you doing? And I'll oftentimes meet that lead at a networking event just
Yeah.
because you have somebody in common that you know.
So I have a question. So sorry. Interrupt. So let's say what does Laddering Works do when they come into a business and let's say they have that marketing piece and sort of they have their website, but how do they connect their marketing with their sales?
Yeah, well, that's a big deal. So people talk about sales and marketing like they're two separate animals.
Mhm.
You know, we have sales and we have marketing, and really your entire organization should be one ecosystem. So you should have things that kind of come across it in effective ways, and that's where your customer gets lost anyway.
You mean
Right.
like a team? They should be a team.
They should be
Is
a
that
team.
how-
You should know where
Fancy
your
that.
your handoffs are, right? Because there's studies of, you know, customers falling off what are called cliffs. So you have marketing does a great job and then they fall off the cliff and
Mhm.
sales doesn't pick it up. But those two groups, for some reason, have always been almost counter to each other. You know, they don't work and play as well as they should. And you need to know for marketing needs to support sales activities. So what
Mhm.
is it we're going to sell? What's that going to look like? And what marketing activities are we doing that need to be handed off correctly to sales? So there should be a conversation going on about why are we doing this? Like, don't do marketing just to do marketing.
Mhm.
You know, you should be doing marketing for a purpose.
Mhm.
And so what's the strategy that needs to involve what objectives are we trying to drive for sales? And if we do generate leads, like if we do create leads on the marketing side, which is the point of marketing,
Right.
is to generate leads, then how is sales going to pick up with them? And does sales have enough information on what was done on the marketing side to understand who they're even talking to? So I do a bunch of marketing and then the salesperson's supposed to pick this
Right.
up. Well, what did they receive? Like, what have they seen? What's going on? So if you're not giving people a heads up on marketing, then your salesperson isn't prepared to have the next conversation.
So what do you look for then when you start with a company and you're just
Well,
going
regrettably,
in?
very few companies that I see, because we focus in kind of the $1 to $20 million market, and we're looking at companies that are trying to grow.
Mhm.
And so they fall on two sides. So companies are really good at operations and really bad at sales and marketing, or they're pretty good at sales typically, maybe not so good at marketing and pretty bad at operations.
Okay.
And so we're fixing kind of broken structure. You know, it's not all bad.
Mhm. Mhm.
We're looking at, I like to use house analogies. It's like a house that needs some renovation. You know, we're going to have to paint, we're going to have to do some plumbing. The bones are good, you know, but we got to do a little work. And doing that work, you start to spin the cycle so that you end up, you know, things are just more effective,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
more efficient.
And then that's where the team comes in, right? You build the team, sort of Laddering Works comes in and builds teams either from the operations standpoint or the marketing. You help a little bit on sales as well, sort of fixing those two working together.
Well, what we do is, you know, there right now in the world, and I owned a research company for 11 years, and we would see job descriptions come across for people who were in that space, and they would ask for somebody who knew how to do design, information architecture, user experience, research.
Oh, wow.
And that was 5 or 6 positions.
Right.
It was not
Right.
one person.
Mhm.
That's what I see in marketing today, specifically. In marketing, they're asking for an individual who knows
Mhm.
how to do articles, bylines, search engine optimization, social media, and that person does not exist.
Mhm.
So what the problem is that small business has a budget,
Right.
and that budget is about one person. So they can spend money on maybe 1 to 2 people,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
they can't afford all of what they need. So my company provides incremental resources to fill those gaps. So you don't need a full-time person doing this work, but you do need some hours a week of a person who's going to write a blog post or put together social media or whatever. And it allows that company to get what they need, get higher talent. And we're not an agency, so we're not going to push anything on anybody. We don't come in and say, you absolutely have to do this tactic. We prescribe the right tactics based on where that company is and what their goals are. And then we make different agencies like Briller and others work together. So we will say, hey, you guys need, nationwide media, and we have a company that knows how to do that. So it's matchmaking a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway.
That's good.
So thanks so much for joining us today. If you are looking at your marketing strategy, or if maybe you don't have one,
Or building a team.
or building a team,
Yes.
operationally, if you're building a team, you're growing faster, which that's a great
Or
problem
if
to
it's
have.
too much, maybe you got too much going on. You need to hand something off.
Yeah, well, and blogging it's so funny when we run into people who are just writing content for the sake of writing content.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't just write content. Like, you should have a reason why you're doing it.
Mhm.
Then reach out to us. It's good planning, and we can get you on a path, and then it just becomes an engine, and it just runs. Just when we get them working, they just run like an engine. So
Letteringworks.com, brillermedia.com.
Works.com.
Thanks so much for joining us on Build Your Best Business. Until next time, what are you going to do to build your best business?